Welcome back, everybody, to America's Mom. I'm your host, Sharona Bishop, and there is never a day that's ever going to go by, I don't think ever again, where we don't have so much news. It's hard to pick and choose what to present to all of you. But I think on the most local level, I think about the day-to-day things that matter the most to us: our family, our God, our country, our freedom, fundamentally keeping our children innocent as long as possible, and continuing to stand against any organization or person or entity, even our very own federal government, who would seek to undermine any of those. So today I thought it was important, and I thought it was necessary because I haven't seen a lot of information out there about this particular story. We're going to just get right into today. Um, you all know how aggressive this administration, the Biden Harris administration, has been against people who stand for life, who are not pro abortion, who are pro life, who are pro family, who are pro God. Even though Joe Biden says he's a Catholic, he has been extremely vocal about his support for abortion. That is the ending and termination of an innocent life. And it is staunchly against Catholic values. It's staunchly against scripture, period. All Christians should be on the same page with this. And yet we have Kamala Harris this weekend, who has been the loudest voice we've ever heard in the political realm, especially running for a presidential position like this. Honestly, I don't even know if she's really running for president. Let's just be real here. She's missed quite a few things, but let's just pretend she is actually running for president. Then her standing up and being the first presidential candidate to actually visit a Planned Parenthood clinic, first in history, you guys, to visit a Planned Parenthood clinic. She has been the first to be so extremely vocal in public in her support and endorsement of abortion. And even though she tried to hide it during the debate with Donald Trump, she couldn't hide it because the facts were on our side. She didn't even know the laws throughout the country. It's just a platform position that she fully supports. I think it's a character position that she fully supports. And it's funny because we were having this conversation off air here just a minute ago. What religion is Kamala anyway? Because this past weekend, she was at a Black mega church receiving prayer. People were surrounding her, praying over her. The pastor was praying for her for such a time as this over Kamala Harris. And she was receiving it. She was enjoying it. She was speaking at it. And she has to, because her position on life, on just funding foundational principles of religion, of Christianity, she's in complete contrast to that. She is diabolically opposed to just the basic principles of Christianity. We've seen it in every asset of her life, going back to her Brown days. So this story came up and it has really had no attention. I saw it very briefly on the Blaze and thought, what in the world? Nobody is talking about this story. And it's very similar to one you may have heard a while back. We had Mark Hauck on a few months ago. He was running for office in New Jersey. He was the father that was targeted because he was a pro-life demonstrator with his son. And he's going to be joining us today. We're going to remind you a little bit of his story. But I want to get his take on what just happened to a 63-year-old pro-lifer man who has been sentenced to federal prison. And I want y'all to understand, these people aren't committing violence. They're not burning down buildings. They're not shooting people. They're not stacking bricks. Um, they're they're literally peacefully assembling on the sidewalks, public sidewalks, and their lives are being turned upside down. So Mark is going to join us on American Mom because you know firsthand what this is like. And I just want to reintroduce you to our audience, to everybody who's watching you and watching today. I want them to know who you are because this has been a whirlwind for you. Your life has been massively turned upside down for your position on life. Can you just kind of walk us through what happened to you a couple of years ago?
Yeah, sure. Well, we were targeted like many other pro-lifers were, and right before the Dobbs decision came out, and that clearly was the trigger for all of these arrests that were unlawful in so many respects. And in my respect, I was facing 11 years in prison, $350,000 in fines, and 3 years supervised probation, all for protecting and defending my son outside of a Planned Parenthood in Philadelphia. And of course, everything was acquitted, but we had to go through 4.5 months of a trial leading up to, and a week-long trial that was agonizing. And with the prospects of going to prison, because the government, when they come after you, has a 98% conviction. So Sharona, I'm really the only person that fought it to the end. Most people have taken a plea or they've gotten a guilty verdict. So here I am, kind of still holding the bag, wondering why I was the only one who was fully acquitted. But nonetheless, that's where we are today in our culture.
Well, and I want to point out too, your story was presented in police state. And there's still a lot of people across the country who do not believe that you innocently were standing on a sidewalk with your child, and you were actually you were aggressively, they kind of had a come at you moment,
Sure.
and then they turned that whole narrative around and made you be the bad guy. Just for everyone who's listening, what happened on the day the FBI came to your home?
Yeah, that was a pre-dawn raid. This is about 6:30 in the morning. I was the only one awake. I was up making breakfast for my children. It was a co-op day for our homeschool children, and everyone was asleep. And so, tyranny banged on the door very violently, very loudly, and declared that they were there and that we were supposed to open up the door. They didn't really announce themselves, so it could have been a very reckless situation. Someone probably should have been shot, but I think, as I'm a Christian man, the Prince of Peace came out upon the federal agents that day and brought peace on my doorstep, because the M16 guns were pointed at me, my wife, and 7 children. Battering rams, 10 marked and unmarked units, over 20 federal agents and Pennsylvania law enforcement. And it was really boggling to think that they would need that much. And when we told them we would turn ourselves in peacefully and there would be no need for such a raid, but that's clearly not what the Biden administration wants to do. They wanted to send a message, and that day, that message was, you're an enemy of the state, and we're going to put you away. And thankfully, they didn't have success there, but they moved on to others.
They have moved on to others. And so, America, you're listening right now and you're watching. We're coming up on a very critical election. Obviously, everybody knows, everybody can feel the squeeze that the Biden administration has put on us, and the squeeze that we're feeling as we're watching interference in our election starting already. We've been going over it all morning long today. Um, how critical in your mind is it that people understand what this administration, who they're targeting and why, and really who do you see that being right now?
Yeah, sure. Well, it's going to get worse for pro-life people, if the Harris ticket gets in 2 weeks. So I don't expect that to improve. In fact, I think it would be way worse, because she's very anti-Catholic. I'm a Catholic Christian, and she's made it clear that she wants to restore reproductive supposed healthcare rights to women, and nothing's going to stop her. So it's very dark, but yet we know as Christians that the light shines the brightest in the darkness. So we need not be afraid, I should say, but at the same time we got to do our part, right, Sharona? We got to get out. We got to vote our conscience, and we have to make sure that that doesn't happen. But we got to prepare ourselves that it could happen, because elections are stolen, and we know that sometimes right doesn't always win. But we're going to persevere, and even in the midst of a Harris administration, we'll continue to fight the good fight.
So this is the story that I really want to get your take on, because this is one of those moments where you say, how in the world does something like this happen? This grandfather, this man is 63 years old. His name is Calvin Zastro, and he was just recently, I love how they call him the notoriously violent federal prisoner. He's a pro-life grandfather. He was just recently put in prison. He will be there for a very long time. They're saying all kinds of things about him that are unfounded, that are ungrounded, and they're just going to get away with it. They're saying all kinds of things about him. But the worst part about all this is, because of that rhetoric that they're putting out there, they have put him in the most violent maximum security prison in the country. Where did you know about Calvin? Had you heard this story yet?
Well, I know about Paul Vaughn, and Calvin was part of that group, and I've talked to Paul, and Paul got house arrest, and this gentleman is doing nothing different than Martin Luther King did to bring about change. And civil disobedience is important, and it's right under the law. An unjust law, we know, is not a law at all. So he's exercising his First Amendment rights, as was I, and of course they're going to put him in a maximum security facility, because they want to send a message. They want to intimidate intimidate, they want to scare, and I'm not surprised by it. God bless him. I'm sure he has joy in the midst of his own persecution, as I did, knowing that Christ suffered first, and if they hated him, they're going to hate us. So, there's a degree of double-edged sword that comes with this. We know when we take on evil that evil is going to push back, and I'm sure Mr. Zastro knows that and is embracing the graces that God's giving him.
That was a really compelling part of your story actually, was the leading up to and the understanding that you weren't going to try to get out of it. That and to this idea of suffering is something I think that Americans are just so diabolically opposed to. I mean, I can't tell you how many times people say, and maybe he is, and I'm not saying he's not, but they'll say, Jesus is coming back soon because America is suffering. And I look around the rest of the world and I'm like, you realize the rest of the world does not live the way we do. You
Yeah.
realize there is unbelievable suffering all over the place. And America has just had this special time of peace and prosperity because of God's grace. But when you were preparing for what might have been your incarceration, this Calvin Zastro could easily be you. You could easily be him right now.
Right. Right.
And you entered into this mindset of accepting this. How did you get there?
Yeah, I think you have to prepare for it way in advance. It's not something that I think can come in the moment. I think you have to be living your life accordingly. And I think, we know that, when we take on cultural evils as we take on the demonic, as you've alluded to before in our previous conversation, that there's going to be some pushback, and you have to expect that. You got to have your eyes wide open, and you do have to count the cost. Hey, I'm going to do this. I'm taking on the federal government. I'm taking on First Amendment rights on behalf of the people of America. And I may lose, but victory is not always determined by losses in courtrooms and things like that. And that's how I approach it. Like, even if we lost, I know what good was going to come of it. I know if I was in prison, I would have been in a maximum security prison as well, because I had an assault charge for pushing a guy away from my son. But even if I went there, I knew good would come of it. I knew great good would come of it. And so I just had that trust in God that he would take care of me and my wife and 7 children. And I think Calvin probably has that mindset as well. I know
I
Paul
think
did. Paul Vaughn did.
I again, I'm so new to this story. I hadn't heard of it. As soon as I saw it, I thought of you and was like, there must be a connection here somewhere. But understanding too that the kind of people that will throw, grandfathers into prison without, without blinking, without thinking twice about it, are the same kind of people who are literally going after. And there will be. Do you think there will be real persecution for Christians here in America under a Harris regime?
Oh, 100%. She's already said she's going to do that, and as far as it pertains to so-called reproductive health care rights. But look, we don't live in fear. I keep telling people, be not afraid. Like, we have to move forward. We have to know that, yes, for such a time as this, we've been created. And this is a great privilege for us to be able to defend the preborn child and the family, and uphold our traditional family values. It's important that we do that. And you know what? Sharona, truly, it's our sanctification. It's truly going to make us better people. It's going to make us holier people. And, Paul was put in prison. Peter was put in prison. Nothing has really changed in 2,000 years. So those that are really walking closely with the Lord are going to suffer in similar ways. And so consider it a privilege when these things happen. So again, we got to kind of turn the table on them, and we have to see this as a good for ourselves. Even though we don't want a Harris administration, we want some protection. We want our rights upheld. Look, under the Constitution, these are God-given rights. Constitution is subservient to those God-given rights. However, we still need to just uphold that document that our founding fathers understood and would be good for our country and our nation in our prosperity. And so here we are. We have to do what those 1700 patriots were doing and what those first century Christians were doing.
Do you think that America really is worth dying for at this point?
Oh boy, as we saw in Police State, remember that Korean gal talking in that movie, how she said America's the last hope. We're the last hope for America. There's no other hope in the world. And so is it worth dying for? Look, a cause greater than yourself, a preborn child, the greatest fight in our world today. Defending your family, defending your son. I would have laid my life down for my son. In those instances, I would have laid my life down for my family to protect them. I think what we have to look at when it comes to these things is like, we have to look at it on a myopic, microscopic level, where why we see that save a soul, you save your own soul. We can't look at it through the millions and numbers of babies being aborted every year. We have to look at it through the next heart that we're touching, the next soul that we're touching. And I know for me in my persecution that we touch many souls just by virtue of our yes to God in the midst of that. One guy reached out in Middle America and he said, "I'm a lousy Catholic, but seeing what's happening to you is bringing me back to church." So I just really felt good about that. I felt like I'd do it just for that guy. And I think that's kind of how we have to look at things. We can't really look at it as like, big war we have to win, but little battles like that I think we each individually need to serve our country in such ways.
Mark, are you back to kind to your activism? Are you back to speaking out publicly about babies, about life, about saving the unborn?
Oh, the week after I was acquitted, 2 years ago, this February, I was back on the street on the sidewalk. I'll be there tomorrow, back in the same place where in Philadelphia where it all happened. So yeah, what's interesting, just as a little side note to your audience, is the gentleman who caused all these problems. He's no longer welcome. Planned Parenthood excused him and said you cannot come here and volunteer. Whereas I'm back on the sidewalk and that guy is no longer. So they banned me for the beginning part of this whole experience, and now that man is banned himself. So it's amazing how God turns things around like that.
It is, and when you look at this story even today of Calvin and what God is gonna do there, I keep thinking unless a seed falls into the ground.
Mm.
I mean, I that thought just keeps coming back to me, and I think in your opinion, you know, you said it isn't something, being prepared for suffering is not something you do right now. It's a lifelong preparation.
True.
But for those who are watching, who are kind of new to the realities of the situation we're in, what's your best advice to them to get ready?
Yeah, I think you have to have small victories, and that might mean for some parents and moms and dads and people out there, just the next good thing, right? That's actually comes from Frozen too, Elsa, do the next right thing. And I think those little small victories, whether it's getting up in the morning sometimes when you don't feel like getting up and having that little victory over that, or reaching out and seeing that through your yes something good positive happens in someone else's life. It could be at the workplace. I think you start there and you start to build. Virtue builds up over time, and we have to make those firm and habitual decisions every day to choose to do the good. And when we do those things, then that becomes a habit, a pattern of our lifestyle, so that when the feds show up at your door, you're still going to choose to do the good. You're going to be loving. You're going to be forgiving. You're going to be joyful. I mean, and I was, I mean, that
Yeah.
in season and out of season.
Yeah, you definitely were. And I know you have an organization, the kingsmen.org. Can you talk a little bit about that and how this empowers and strengthens men?
Sure. Yeah. We've been around for about 20 years now. And, we started just as a group of men trying to be better men, right? Just better single guys we were at the time. And now it's morphed into helping fathers and husbands and young men just be better sons, better brothers. It's this beloved sonship concept that Christ shares with us. You are my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased. Like most men don't live in that love and live in that reality. And so we try to bring a movement together to help men understand that they're beloved by God, whether or not they had a good father or not, that they're beloved, and they must live in that reality and move in that reality in the world to help protect and defend others and to lead their own family. So retreats and small men's groups around the country is what we do, and we take on cultural evils like abortion, traditional marriage we defend, and fight pornography. So those are some of the things you'll find at our website.
I love how offhanded, we just fight all the demons. It's just what we do every day.
Slay a
That's
few
how
dragons.
we slay a few giants every day. It's just what we do. Thank you so
Right.
much for joining us today and your input and insight on this. But more
Sure.
than that is for being a strong man. This country
Okay.
needs more of that. Thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you, Sharona. Always good to be with you.
Friends, there are lots of strong men and they need a voice. They need a platform. I've been watching this incredible movement. Eric Metaxas, Kelly Walker, my own husband, Mark Hauck, all these amazing men who are stepping up and they're not allowing the feminist movement anymore to shut them down or the society to say, we don't care what you have to say. They're not allowing for the sexualization of our children. I shared some of those videos last week of fathers who are really, I mean, they are handily taking it to those quote elected officials who have been stripping our children of innocence. And it is about time, I have to say. I look forward to it. So again, you can find more about Mark and his efforts at thekingsman.org. Go check it out. Well, I've been telling you guys for a long time, 2 years now, I've been shopping with an American manufacturer that has made a massive impact in our family, the way we spend money, and the way we prioritize our spending, quite frankly, because we are not interested in supporting woke organizations. We're not interested in funding BlackRock world dominance. We want to keep it close to home. America first, American manufacturer, and putting the American worker above all. So we have made a huge switch. And again, it's been 2 years now, which I feel is very proven, tested, and I can really tell you with confidence how much I have loved this company and all that it provides for my family. Over 500 everyday use items that are clean, toxin free, no hormone disruptors, nothing to strip men of their testosterone out there, guys, just so you know. Ladies, I know you're always thinking about that with your sons. So we want to make sure our men stay strong. And of course, they were green before green was even cool. They've cared about our environment for a very long time. Actually, it was one of their founding principles, a real green company. You can go to shopwithpatriots.com to check out more, learn more today. But I can tell you this right now, the rage has been Ozempic. I would never do Ozempic because there's so many side effects, and I don't think it's healthy to do stuff like that. However, nature has its own form of Ozempic, and we offer that as well. DM me for more details on that one. Ladies, it has everything you need from your cosmetics, skincare, supplements, dietary, and of course, snacks. But best of all, for the men, we have the beef, mRNA free beef. It has been a 20-year project for this company, and it stretches from Hawaii to the Midwest of America. And boy, are they putting out some incredible meat. We enjoy the steaks about every other week, and we do the hamburger almost every single day. It is incredible. There's so many different options, and it is affordable for the average American family. mRNA free, never antibiotics or hormones added. Please go to shopwithpatriots.com. Go check it out today. And you guys, this is a club. It is a club for us, for we the people, for patriots who love this country and want to support her first without losing quality and without paying an arm and a leg. You will love it. Shopwithpatriots.com. So, friends, as we're kind of getting into as we're getting into this next season, of elections, I think it's really important for you guys to know that there is a huge election going on that maybe you may have missed, some information you may have missed, and that is happening in Utah. How many of you guys have seen Spencer Cox? He's probably the second most unlikable governor in the entire country. Spencer Cox is a cohort of Colorado's governor, the first openly homosexual governor who's been pursuing our children. I don't know. It's just what it is. Uh, and they formed this like "Be Nice" campaign where where they were trying to compel us, the citizens, to be nice to them, the elected officials. Can you believe that? Can you believe the gaslighting by elected officials? I mean, it's a brilliant plan. Everybody needs to be nice to us. We need to be kind to elected officials. No, we don't. We're supposed to hold elected officials to the highest accountability. Period. Period. And if you get your feelers hurt, what is that? I mean, what do I care? If you're not doing what's right by the people, be prepared because the people are allowed to speak up and express their grievances. But they didn't really see it that way. So they created the Be Kind campaign, which was designed to shut down the American people and keep them from telling their governors how much they disdain their practices. Well, this is a very interesting story. If you haven't been following it, Phil Lyman was a representative for the state of Utah. And he actually was one of the OGs of the FBI raids, you guys, way back when he was raided for expressing dissent on the takeover of public lands in the state of Utah. Can you believe that? He was raided by the FBI. He ended up running for office and winning. He's been a very effective representative. He's been a very vocal and just a fantastic voice for the people of Utah. Well, he ran a campaign against Spencer Cox, who professes to be a Republican, but literally everything he does is adversarial to Republican platform, policies, and principles. And we all kind of think Spencer's in the closet, to be honest with you. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but I'm saying it. And him and Jared Polis together is so cringe. It's like there is a major love fest going on there. It's very cringy. So Spencer Cox, we're thinking that he's not even being honest in his own life because he does have to play a certain role, I guess, to appear as though he got elected in Utah. He's been very, very bad for Utah. His COVID policies, educational policies, spending policies. Phil Lyman could go down the list here. Well, Phil Lyman supposedly lost the primary. Okay. Very popular candidate, very popular campaign, and really nobody likes Spencer Cox. Well, there's been a twist, a really interesting twist. Phil Lyman's team, his gubernatorial team, was investigating whether or not Spencer Cox had actually accrued enough signatures to even be on the ballot. Because in the state of Utah, you have to have a certain number of signatures in order to qualify to run for governor, even if you are a sitting governor. Well, according to Phil Lyman's team, Spencer Cox did not meet this quota. He has not met the signatures needed. And so, fascinatingly enough, I'm going to share this with you guys. Fascinatingly enough, he has taken this all the way to the Supreme Court. He had done a write in campaign initially. And now he is actually going all the way to the Supreme Court of Utah to have them validate and verify whether or not Spencer Cox is a viable candidate. You guys, you have to check this out. Now, this is what the reason I'm sharing this story with you is because this is what being on the offense looks like. What is it to be on the offense? This is what it is. So, in Phil Lyman for Governor press release, this is on Twitter, you guys. He is appealing to the U.S. Supreme Court because he is saying that the Republican convention winner and write-in candidate as the write-in candidate for governor, he is appealing the decision by the Utah Supreme Court to dismiss without ruling on its merits his petition for extraordinary writ of declaratory and injunctive relief. The original petition was filed on August 1st, and it names Governor Spencer Cox, Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson, Utah Republican Chair Party Robert Axon, and the Utah Republican Party as respondents. They had already known that the processes had been violated. So the petition explains that Lyman is arguing that Governor Cox and LG Henderson ignored the rulings of previous cases. According to those rulings, the state Republican Party's internal processes were not impacted by from the 2014 Senate bill. The party could still nominate their candidate through the caucus and convention system. According to the party's constitution and the nominating convention rules, if a candidate receives 60% or more of the delegate votes during the party's convention, the party does not participate in the primary for that office. Okay, so that means they would not be backing the lesser candidate. The party does not participate, and the convention winner advances directly to the general election. In such case, no signature collection candidates may force a primary. As such, there should have been no Republican primary for governor because the threshold for such a primary, two candidates qualifying via convention, was not triggered. Phil Lyman is on the offense. So he has decided to appeal this decision to the U.S. Supreme Court because he believes the Utah Supreme Court's dismissal was frivolous and misconstrued the previous SCOTUS ruling regarding elections. There's not enough history of litigation surrounding these bills to support an appeal to SCOTUS, they had said. We look forward to the next steps in the process. So his appeal is posted here. It is absolutely incredible. So here we are. They're not only appealing the ability for this Governor Cox to be on the ballot, but now did he even garner enough ballots to be on there or enough signatures to even be on the ballot? I'm going to share one more thing with you. And again, I'm sharing this with you because I'm tired of people not being on the offensive. We need to get on the offensive. There are things that can be done that people like Phil Lyman are doing in order to secure our elections. And not only that, but to make sure that we're not getting selections put into office. So hang on tight just for 1 second. I want to share one more incredibly important Instagram post that they did that's really, really critical. So hang on just 1 second. Now, as I'm pulling this up, I just want you to think about this for a second. What would it look like if you knew that there were contested races and you didn't just have to sit on your hands and say, well, I guess there's nothing we can do about it? This is why I'm going to be sharing these stories of contestants, of candidates who we have validated what they're saying. They are taking a legal route. They're putting their neck on the line. They're doing all the things that they need to be doing to make sure they're securing their own election and to prove out, right? Because we need the receipts. You can't just say, this happened to me, and all of us say, okay. They need to prove out what they are saying has happened. Well, that's exactly what's happening here. So I'm going to share this with you guys. Just 1 second. It is just an incredible video. Again, it is questioning whether or not there is actually enough Oh yeah, there's so much scandal going on in Utah that it's hard to find them all. I'm hoping that I can find this for you guys because it's really, really compelling. Checking these little things, making sure that we're checking the candidates' actual contributions, where those contributions are coming from. I want to just share this with you. Hopefully, I can get this pulled up for you guys. I just don't see that same video, so I just want to make sure it's here. So Phil Lyman is currently a write-in candidate, obviously, and we want to see people doing that to help secure Utah. But as we're waiting to see whether or not what the court is going to do about Spencer Cox even being a legitimate candidate, can he even be actually running for office? This is going to get very, very interesting. So people in Utah, stay on your toes, okay? Stay on your toes because there is a lot happening in Utah. And because he's basically best bosom buddies now with Jared Polis, who is the head of the Governors Association for the country, you guys. Jared Polis of the state of Colorado is now the head of the Governors Association. So this is a made-up organization. Remember, the associations are all made-up organizations that apply pressure on whatever office they're set up for. If it's the county clerks, if it's the school board, if it's the county commissioners, there's an association for every single political office, and what they do is they use political pressure to get these governors or whatever they want them to do. We're talking about the governors right now, so let's focus on that. They're going to use the Governors Association to put pressure on other governors to fall in line with what? Well, Jared Polis is a globalist. He's a well-known globalist. He parades as a libertarian businessman. In fact, he made himself his own Halloween costume this year. Just really edifying himself. He's quite a goofball, but he's also been one of the leaders of the National Voter Interstate Compact, which is the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, which is number one, a violation of the Constitution. States cannot have interstate compacts. And secondly, it takes away the Electoral College. And once they get to 270 electorates that have joined into their pact, they plan to take over our elections with popular vote. Now, we've gone over this before. We've talked about the significance of this, why it matters so much. The popular vote right now would be 30 million illegals who have, oh gosh, I didn't know that was there that whole time. 30 million illegals who have flooded into America who are going to be able to vote. I showed examples all morning this morning on our live on Facebook Live of people turning in illegal ballots. Washington State, you can literally just get online and print yourself off some illegal ballots with a phony name, phony birth date. There's no validation or checking, and then turn that ballot in. In New Jersey, we have a man who says, "I'm not a citizen. I'm here on a green card." And they go, "Okay, that's all right. We'll let someone else work it out. Here you go." They're supporting illegals voting in our elections. And so if you have upwards of 30 million illegals who have flooded into our country and you're trying to pass the national interstate compact, this voting compact that takes away our electoral college, which by the way, the electoral college, in case some of you are still unsure about why that exists, what it is, how it works, the electoral college is so important because it gives a form of some kind of equity. Really, the Democrats are always talking about how much they love equity. They don't really. They only like it when they're talking about absurd and perverse issues. When we're talking about real issues like our vote, they don't like it. They do not like the Electoral College because it gives equity to rural areas so that we're not completely overwhelmed by the cities. The cities have different needs than the rural communities do. The rural communities take care of their own selves, they take care of their community. They don't need these ordinances and rules and all the things that cities decide to impose on themselves. But all too often, these Democrat, leftist, communistic tendency, social, very socialized governors who fall into the socialism system, who believe that everything should be equally unhappy and sad, and the government should own your property and then disperse it how they feel best. They want to put those same practices on the rural communities. So the Electoral College prevents the giant cities, the few giant cities, and the few heavily populated states from overwhelming the rest of the country with their voice. It continues to allow for middle America and the rural communities to have a voice. In fact, we've talked about in states like Colorado about having an electoral college literally for our own state elections because the rural parts of Colorado are so underrepresented. They're overwhelmed by the cities. They're overwhelmed by the leftist Jared Polis, and literally nothing we say matters. That's why they released wolves, Canadian gray wolves, into the state of Colorado to annihilate the ranchers, to annihilate their herds, to take out our hunting, to take out, elk and deer and all of that. That's what the wolves are going to do. They just kill indiscriminately. It's just what they do. It's their nature. And they literally, Jared Polis introduced wolves. His boyfriend, husband, whatever he is a PETA fanatic, and thought this would be a great idea. This would be a great idea. He's been behind the Wolf Initiative. He's been behind the eliminating uh, the we do hunts for the wildcats because they get out of control and they're extremely dangerous. And they've eliminated some of that also. So now we're going to have an influx more of these wildcats there. They also have introduced wolverines. These animals, the wolverines don't naturally exist in Colorado. Canadian gray wolves don't naturally exist in Colorado, and they are upsetting the whole atmosphere there in Colorado. And it's interesting too because people are not going out on the trails without a gun or at the very least bear spray. Um, it's very interesting what's happening because of these policies and what goes on there. But I digress. Back to the Electoral College. These policies are only cute when you live completely removed from reality. And with the wealthy dominating so many of our elected offices now, they have no grip on reality. $7 eggs does not hurt them the way that it hurts us, regular people. Um, Schools, having low performing schools does not hurt them the way that it hurts us because they can afford to send their children to these, fancy Bixby communist schools. Jared Polis, talking to you and your Bixby Communist School there in Boulder or the Queer Endeavor. Anyway, their policies are hurting rural America. And so without the Electoral College, we don't have any sense of equity in our elections. We don't. The big cities and the overwhelming cheating and the illegal voters will very easily overwhelm any legitimate election that is happening. And that's exactly what they want. So they want the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact to go through. And Spencer Cox is a part of that, the governor of Utah, the governor, obviously, Newsom of California. I believe that they're up to 190 electorates right now. They may have even cleared the 200 mark. Once they hit 270, those states will enact the national popular vote rather than the electoral college. And all sense of equity, all sense of protection, all of that will be gone. So just keep that in mind because these are the battles that we're having. And that's why people like Phil Lyman, who is running for as a write-in candidate for the governor of Colorado, why he is so aggressively on the offense against Spencer Cox, getting him out of there. We need to be looking for the same clever tools. We need to be looking at the same clever ideas to help us move the dial forward. I want to switch gears for just a moment to elections, and I want to introduce you to a video that I received just yesterday. Actually, I received it last night. And I watched the entirety. It's a 16-minute video. I will be posting it on all of my social media platforms. So you're going to want to go take a look at this. But I'm going to kind of walk you through briefly the outline, where the video came from, and why it is so significant to you. So I have posted all of this already on my Twitter. So please know that it is all there. But I want to walk through this just a little bit because it really is so important. I'm going to give you just a couple flashes of the actual video itself and introduce you to the CIA agent who actually put this video together so that you, the people, could understand and be able to explain and articulate what is happening in your elections. This man has already been confirmed. Again, I received these videos from election attorneys who have already paid the ultimate price here in America. They're already dealing with the weaponization and lawfare of the FBI and the DOJ, and they believe that this video is extremely critical and this information needs to get out. So the information comes from former CIA station chief Gary Bernstein. It's spelled Bernstsen. And he connects really all of the dots, almost all of them, of our stolen elections. Now, some of these pieces we've already known about. We've written about these at the Lindell Offense Fund. Mike Lindell has spoken about this. His experts have spoken about this. Patrick Colbeck, the former senator from Minnesota, has spoken about this repeatedly. Sheriff Dar Leaf, one of the reasons he has been so aggressively sought after by the DOJ is because he has the emails that are going to be referenced in this video. I'm going to bullet point the findings, but I want to introduce you to this man, to this. He is the former CIA station chief, Gary Bernstein. And I hope I'm saying that correctly. I apologize if I'm not. But take a listen to this for just a moment. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I want to introduce you to him so that you know exactly who this person is. And again, this video right now is on YouTube. I don't expect it to stay there much longer, but please take a listen.
Hello, my name is Gary Burnson. I'm a veteran of the United States Air Force and a retired senior operations officer and chief of station of the Central Intelligence Agency. For over 3 decades, I served in the U.S. national security apparatus in various capacities. Shortly after the attacks of 11 September 2001, I entered Afghanistan and commanded CIA paramilitary forces, helping seize the cities of Talokan and the capital of Afghanistan, Kabul. I was the driving force and architect of the Battle of Tora Bora. I held the position as chief of Hezbollah operation in CIA's counterterrorism center for several years and concluded my service in CIA as a chief of station in Latin America combating narco-terrorists. Approximately 6 years ago, a business associate and I began working together as whistleblowers for the Department of Justice, FBI, DEA, and Homeland Security Investigations, HSI. Our target was the largest and most well-funded transnational criminal organization on the planet, called the Cartel del Sol, Cartel of the Sun. The Cartel del Sol is the Venezuelan government and is led by Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, Diosdado Cabello, Minister of Defense Vladimir Lopez Padrino, President of the National Assembly Jorge Rodriguez, and former Director General of Military Counterintelligence Hugo Carbajal, who was detained in Spain several years ago and extradited to New York. He is currently awaiting trial for narco trafficking. Venezuelan President Maduro has a U.S. indictment and bounty of U.S. $15 million for his capture. Diosdado Cabello has U.S. indictment and a $10 million bounty on his head. At least 6 other Venezuelan cabinet members and senior officials are indicted. In the last 20 years, the Cartel del Sol has stolen $1 trillion from Venezuela's national oil company, PDVSA, and embezzled $500 billion from its national treasury. It not only has, but continues to produce and smuggle 25 to 40 metric tons of cocaine every month out of its country into the world. The Cartel del Sol is a $2 trillion transnational criminal organization and the most well-resourced criminal syndicate in history. Through bribery and investment of its funds, it controls 12 countries and world leaders. It has massive investments in the US and European financial markets and institutions. As we conducted investigations against the Cartel del Sol and presented them one after another to the US Department of Justice, we noticed and pursued leads from the cartel's money laundering operations to the world of non-governmental organizations and election companies. After witnessing election irregularities associated with the 2020 US presidential election, we decided to direct time and resources to Cartel del Sol links to US and global election fraud. After an exhaustive 3.5-year investigation, it is indisputable. Smartmatic Election Systems was created at the direction of now deceased Venezuelan dictator Hugo Chavez.
Okay, I'm going to pause it there for just a moment because, and actually I'm going to stop the video right there. Again, I'm going to post the video up, but I wanted you to see who this man is. I wanted you to hear straight from his mouth what he's saying. Now, I'm going to give you the rundown on what the rest of this video, what Gary reveals in the rest of this video. It is a 16-minute, 46-second video. It is well worth every minute of your time to watch it. His investigation, of course, exposed Cartel del Sol, and that they were revealed the subversion of U.S. elections, their interference in our elections. Smartmatic, as he just stated, was developed by the Venezuelan government, designed to steal elections. The Venezuelan government owns the source code. Owns the source code. That means they can interfere in any machine in the country, period. Smartmatic is tied to Sequoia and Dominion voting systems, he goes on to say, and Smartmatic and Dominion are basically inseparable. Communist China and Serbia have engineered the source code. Oh, great. Smartmatic and Dominion voting equipment are manufactured in China, yet labeled as though they are manufactured in Taiwan. So, Colorado, 26 states in the union use Dominion, and many others use Smartmatic. Doesn't matter. They're all made from the same place. Chinese and Serbian developers maintain the administrative access to electronic voting systems in the United States. Do you see why Mike Lindell has been saying we need to secure our election platforms? They are not secure. When you think about that the military cannot even order underwear from China, it's shocking, shocking that they are ordering, that states are ordering their electronic voting machines where we cast our precious vote are coming from China. CISA, the FBI, DOJ, and Office of Public Integrity officials are all complicit with subversion. You'll go on to hear why in the audio. Dominion Belgrade and Serbia offices are storing our US election data. I don't think that's right. I didn't know foreign adversaries were supposed to harvest our information. Plus, Gary has all of the evidence to support all of these assertions. He is his background is legitimate. Like I said, I didn't receive this just from somebody watching YouTube. I received these from election attorneys who have paid the ultimate price already, just about lost everything. They've been willing to because they believe America is worth saving. And I think today, if you walk away with nothing else from our time together today, there are people that are doing above and beyond to secure our country. They're working in their own backyards. They're doing what God has put before them to do, and it requires all of us to be involved. I want to be really emphatic about this. The reports that are coming in of election fraud across the country already during early voting is shocking. It's shocking. They're not even trying to really hide it. CISA has already come out saying that there was going to be problems with the equipment, and we knew that. So they didn't lie. They have to tell us the truth, but it's whether or not we the people are going to listen and do something about it. I want to encourage everybody to go to causeofamerica.org and download the paper ballot hand count pamphlet there. It instructs you and guides you exactly how to do it. It is a very simple process, and it will save your local elections. We cannot count on these machines. You have just heard directly from the source, and you're going to hear more about what is actually going on with these machines. They have already been infiltrated. They are already have the ability and capacity to be controlled by other governments, and it appears that they are. So we have an obligation. We have a duty. In Chicago today, the machines are failing. In Tarrant County, the machines are flipping votes. In Dallas County, the machines are flipping votes. They failed their logic and accuracy test, but tried to pass it off as though they didn't. In Washington, you're able to print off ballots and create fake ballots. This is just what we're learning so far. New Jersey, they're demonstrating that they're allowing illegals to vote. This is just what we're hearing already, but you guys, the icing on the cake. The icing on the cake is coming up next. Garland Favorito is going to be joining us in just a moment to talk about exactly what is happening in Georgia and the new angle that the federal government is taking. Are they helping to steal elections, or are they really trying to secure the cyber world? We're going to be right back in just a moment. All right, everybody. Thank you guys for listening today. We're going to be wrapping up the rest of it. You'll get to see the rest of our interviews on Patriot TV tomorrow at 3 p.m. Central Time, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Join us there at patriot.tv.com, not.com, just patriot.tv. Join us there. Garland Favorito is going to be dropping some bombs, and I cannot wait for you guys to hear exactly what our federal government is doing to us now, as only Garland can tell, along with an update on the Georgia case for elections there. Everything is riding on this case right now, even the future of President Donald J. Trump. So I hope you guys will tune in and listen on Patriot TV tomorrow at 3 p.m. Central Time, 4 p.m. Eastern. That's 2 Mountain and 1 p.m. Pacific. Love you guys. Thank you for being with us today on America's Mom. And remember, all that's necessary for evil to prevail is for you great men and women to do absolutely nothing. See you back here soon.